Republican Convention Sunday.
Now it's the Republicans' turn. They're decorating the New Orleans Superdome for a grand old party, putting the finishing touches on their platform and rolling out the red carpet for George Bush. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from our convention headquarters in beautiful New Orleans. Good evening. Delegates to the Republican National Convention are descending on this historic city, and this arena, the Superdome, is just about ready for them. Next week, they will officially name George Bush their candidate for president. Today, Bush was at the White House for a made-for-television pre-New Orleans warm-up pep rally. As Bill Plant reports, President Reagan was there as chief cheerleader.
Giving George Bush his strongest endorsement yet, President Reagan handed over a gavel, symbolic of the leadership mantle he and the Republican Party are trying to pass on to the vice president. Mr. Reagan told a pre-convention pep rally of political appointees that Bush had been a great vice president and would be an even better president.
The other folks talk, George Bush will deliver. The truth is that what we've achieved is just the beginning. The best is yet to come.
Both the president and Bush signaled the themes which will be pounded home at their convention, painting Michael Dukakis as a liberal who will undo the economic recovery.
And this election hinges on one crucial difference. My opponent sees the task ahead as to how to manage the decline of this country. And we are not in decline. That is too negative.
Another GOP campaign goal, selling the idea that Dukakis is an unknown quantity and therefore a bad choice.
And frankly, I don't think the American people want to gamble their future on a blind date.
But even Republicans admit that George Bush isn't exactly the prom queen. They acknowledge that serving as a loyal number two has given the vice president no identity of his own, something Democrats are eager to exploit.
On the Reagan-Bush team, Reagan obviously is the stronger partner. And the stronger partner's out there trying to save the coming election for the weaker partner. That's not going to work.
I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. The fact is that once the convention is over in New Orleans, George Bush is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. He'll develop his own aura and independence as a result of that.
Republican political pros hope that's true, but they worry a lot because the polls show that Bush is already perceived negatively by a very large number of people. They're counting on the convention to change that perception, but they acknowledge that at this point, it's strictly up to George Bush. Dan?
Thanks, Bill. Expectations building for that Thursday acceptance speech. The vice president will be here at the Superdome in just under a week, face-to-face with thousands of delegates and the biggest challenge of his political career. Correspondent Bob Schieffer is down there now where it will all happen. Bob?
Dan, he'll have the nomination in his pocket when he arrives here to speak Thursday night, but to many Republicans, George Bush's problem is simply this. To many voters, he is still an unknown.
This is a tremendous opportunity for him, given the fact that up until now he has come to the election without a crisp image and without the kind of personal feeling with the people that most candidates have.
As he toured this huge hall this week, Bush's people said he needs to stir up the kind of enthusiasm here that gave Democrat Dukakis such a boost in the polls after Atlanta.
Records indicate that Dukakis got a 4 or 5 point bump. He did, and he might have been even better had he not been overshadowed by Jesse Jackson in the early part of that convention. We expect to be able to do as well.
Because the New Orleans Superdome is so big, it will take 200,000 Republican balloons just to produce the effect the Democrats got with only 20,000 in Atlanta. But as the final touches were being added here, the larger task was mostly done. Shaping a platform Republicans hope will jumpstart the campaign.
What we have done is put forth a challenge to the deceitful, dishonest, misrepresentative campaign that Michael Dukakis and the Democrats have chosen to run.
Republicans on the right want Bush to pick a conservative running mate, so there too he must do some fancy footwork. Bush still won't say who he wants, but today's hot rumor is that Indiana's conservative Senator Dan Quayle has emerged as a leading prospect. Illinois Governor Jim Thompson, by the way, took himself out of the running today. But as important as all that is for George Bush, this convention comes down to Thursday night and what must be the speech of his life.
He has to leave the American people on Friday morning feeling that they know who he is That's the most important thing.
So the stakes for George Bush this week will be very high, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Dan?
Thank you, Bob. Along with Republicans, Democratic candidate Michael Dukakis headed south today, first to Richmond, Virginia, then on to Jacksonville, Florida, where he hit two themes. One was anti-crime. He told a rally on the Jacksonville waterfront he would wage a real war, not a phony war on drugs. And Dukakis condemned what he called the Reagan administration's borrow and spend against the future policy. And just so he won't be forgotten on the eve of the Republican convention, Dukakis has launched a new 60-second political commercial.
For a new era of economic greatness in America, Michael Dukakis for president.
That commercial is being shown in the key areas of California and in Houston. Another campaign is being waged for the hearts and minds of a certain group of people in the North. And CBS News National Affairs correspondent Leslie Stahl reports on that.
They're the so-called Reagan Democrats, the northern, white, middle-class, blue-collar, ethnic voters, and George Bush is doing everything he can to win them over.
Giorgio Buscherino.
Giorgio, muchísimo grazie.
But polls show these voters drifting back to the Democrats.
Conservative Reagan Democrats and independents are feeling real pressures, economic pressures. They were convinced by the Republicans before that those pressures were because of poor people. Now they're thinking it may be because of the country club set. And if that takes hold, then Bush loses.
For people who live from paycheck to paycheck, Bush's world is a far cry from theirs.
He doesn't care about what the people think. It's just what big business thinks and what he thinks.
I don't feel he's one of us. That's where Reagan has a way of coming across that makes you think he's your friend and all that.
There's no question that voters are not going to have the kind of connection with Bush that they had with Reagan. But as long as they connect to Bush's ideas and his positions, I frankly think Bush will ultimately get those votes.
He would cut the muscle of our defense, and I never will do that.
After conducting interviews with focus groups, the Bush campaign believes Dukakis is on the wrong side of a number of issues that appeal specifically to conservative Democrats, including no tax increase, strong national defense, and support of the death penalty.
We had two groups of 20 Democrats who supported Reagan in 1984 and were supporting Dukakis in 1988. And we discussed 6 or 7 issues with this group, and after that, between 40 and 60% of these people changed over to Bush.
CBS News obtained a tape of one of those focus groups where Dukakis' position on crime was spelled out.
He favors a policy of giving weekend furloughs to convicted felons for good behavior.
No, it would be bad. You know.
I'd like to ask him why.
And so when he campaigns, Bush talks about the issues that worked in the focus groups.
I think about the face that angers us all. The arrogant face of a criminal back on the streets once more because of a permissive plea bargain or some furlough.
Republican strategists say quite openly now that Bush has to keep the focus off personality and on the issues, off what Bush is and on what he believes. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, Washington.
Every few days, the Bush camp floats the names of possible vice presidential nominees. Reporters call them the touts of the day. Today's touts were Senators Simpson of Wyoming and Armstrong of Colorado. A squadron mate of George Bush during World War II spoke out today. A decorated veteran himself, he pointed out that Bush has told different stories about the time when his plane was shot down. Some newspaper accounts quote him as saying that Bush could have saved the lives of his crew members had he not decided to bail out. That's not exactly what he told CBS News. Richard Schlesinger reports.
How does one man come so far?
George Bush's World War II experience in the South Pacific at one time became a centerpiece of his campaign. To combat what was called the wimp factor, Bush campaign ads showed film of his rescue at sea after being shot down over a Japanese island. And Bush talked about the experience often in interviews.
That was close to death. The plane was in smoke and the wings were burning, and so it was about as close as you can get.
But this man, Chester Mierzejewski, today disputed Bush's version of what happened that day almost 45 years ago. Mierzejewski was a turret gunner in the plane in front of Bush and told his story to the New York Post. Mirzeski says he never saw any flames when he told his pilot Bush was hit.
As I said, I just seen a puff of smoke, and basically that's it. And as I looked at it, that's when I called the skipper out at this time. I'm pretty sure I don't know George got hit.
Was the plane on fire?
No.
Mirzeski remembers hoping Bush would be able to save his plane since one of his friends was on board. Bush's office today released a statement saying the vice president's record is well documented, and to suggest that his account of what happened on that day, September 2nd, 1944, is inaccurate and simply absurd. But Bush has told different versions of what happened. He told some interviewers that one of his crewmen parachuted out of the plane with him.
One of them got out. I think the other was killed in the plane.
But the Washington Post this weekend reported Bush said he knew none of his crew got out. And one of Bush's friends says that's what Bush told him in 1946.
There being no response at any time, it being impossible for him to get back to investigate personally, it was jump or go in with the plane.
And as far as I know, nobody else jumped out.
Official Navy records back up Bush's version of events. Both Bush and Mirzeski are talking about an incident that occurred many years ago and in the heat of combat. Mirzeski says he only came forward because Bush was telling a different version of an event he witnessed. Mirzeski denies any political motive and says he doesn't know yet who he'll vote for. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, New York.
The nation's 76th Attorney General, former Pennsylvania Governor Richard Thornburgh, was sworn into office today by Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. The 75th Attorney General, Edwin Meese, in his final hours in office, issued an order for senators and representatives accused of criminal wrongdoing to be investigated by independent counsels as members of the executive branch are now. This was called an act of revenge by some Democrats. Vice President Bush has supported Meese. Reports published today said this issue was the subject of a heated argument between House Speaker Jim Wright and Vice President Bush at a congressional dinner. The confrontation reportedly began when Wright criticized Bush for his election year urging that an independent special counsel look into Wright's financial affairs. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News from New Orleans, Rita Braver with new revelations about John Hinckley's fascination with actress Jodie Foster, and correspondent David Browning on the first day of The Last Temptation of Christ, a controversial film that's drawing a crowd.
If they could see you now out on a fun ship cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
With low back pain, walking can be agony, where every step shoots pain. Up here, you know what helps? New back guard.
Clinically proven back guard is a shoe insert for low back pain aggravated by foot shock. Back guard with its shock trapper module relieves this low back pain. Watch how it helps absorb shock upon impact to reduce the shock to your back.
Amazing. Something down here can help up here.
New back guard from Dr. Scholl's. Absorb shock all day to help keep back pain away.
It's out there again, waiting. Allergy season. But allergies don't have to be a big problem. Not with fast-acting Benadryl, the most prescribed allergy medication ever.
Now, a revolution in blade shaving from Remington, the new Remington Electro Blade, with vibrating blades for a close, smooth, comfortable shave. Safe, immersible, and cordless. The new Remington Electro Blade vibrating blade system.
For the second time in little more than a year, the young man who shot President Reagan has been denied an outing from the mental hospital where he's being held. As before, it is partly because of correspondence that he's written. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver has more on this latest episode in John Hinckley's life.
John Hinckley traveled under heavy guard to the federal courthouse in Washington for a hearing on whether he should be allowed to leave St. Elizabeth's Hospital for a supervised picnic or other day trip. But by the time he arrived at court, Hospital officials had suddenly dropped the outing request, telling Judge Barrington Parker that late yesterday evening they received new materials requiring further clinical assessment by Mr. Hinckley's treatment staff. Sources tell CBS News that those materials include letters Hinckley recently wrote to a mail-order house requesting pictures of actress Jodie Foster. Hinckley's obsession with Foster led him to shoot President Reagan in an attempt to capture her attention. In papers filed yesterday, prosecutors referred to troubling entries in Hinckley's medical record. Sources say those entries also indicate that Hinckley admitted recently writing for the Foster pictures. At the request of Hinckley's attorneys, the judge ordered that the questionable materials remain under seal, despite efforts by the U.S. attorney to make them public.
These are materials which obviously relate to a matter of great national importance. They relate to an individual who attempted the assassination of the President of the United States, and we think that the public should be aware of what the nature of these materials are.
Just a little over a year ago, a similar bid by Hinckley to go on an outing was dropped after it was revealed that he was corresponding with serial killer Theodore Bundy. Asked today if the hospital had failed to be vigilant enough, the U.S. attorney would say only, the facts speak for themselves. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
A controversial movie many Christians consider to be insulting and blasphemous, called The Last Temptation of Christ, opened to the public today in this country and Canada. As expected, there were protesters. There also were plenty of patrons. Correspondent David Browning has our story about this movie that they're maligning and lining up for.
It has mushroomed into one of the hardest-fought battles in movie history. On the eve of the opening of The Last Temptation of Christ, thousands of demonstrators, 25,000 by one count, virtually barricaded Universal Studios. The demonstrators incensed at the film's portrayal of Christ as a man filled with self-doubt and tempted on the cross to dream of pleasures of the flesh. Sacrilege or art?
The film could potentially offend the deeply held beliefs of many religious Americans.
The film has been denounced on the floor of the House. Fundamentalist broadcasters have condemned it round the clock.
This is an attack upon and against the entire plan of salvation.
God's world is big enough for everybody.
Nazarene, that's against the law.
Then the law is against my heart.
Universal has countered with packaged endorsements by churchmen and the movie's director, Martin Scorsese.
This is not a film to shake anybody's faith. That's the last thing in the world I'd want to do. I feel that if they have faith, the faith is strong, and this film would never hurt anyone's faith.
And today, many of Scorsese's Hollywood colleagues came to his defense.
Christianity has survived for 2,000 years. Certainly, Martin Scorsese's $6.5 million movie is not a major threat to it.
These monstrous blasphemies!
As the film opened today, there were indications that all the fuss may very well be attracting moviegoers who might not have bothered otherwise.
All the controversy over it just encouraged me to come today.
There were healthy lines at the box office at midday in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Demonstrators were there too, but in some cases were outnumbered by photographers. The studio seemed pleased.
The fact that this film has been shown and that an audience has seen it and has loved it is extremely important for this country. I'm very proud.
A footnote to the debate, movie trivia experts point out that it comes today on the birthday of the man who perfected the biblical movie epic, the late Cecil B. DeMille, who liked to say, think big. David Browning, CBS News, Hollywood.
The nation's wholesale prices were up 0.5% last month. That's the biggest increase since March.
I used to take aspirin for minor arthritis pain, but it sometimes upset my stomach, so I switched from aspirin to Advil. See, Advil contains the same medicine that's in the prescription brand Motrin. You know, just one Advil is as effective as 2 regular aspirin. Advil works for hours, and it doesn't upset my stomach the way aspirin sometimes can. For me, Advil is simply the better choice. Advil, tablets and caplets, advanced medicine for pain.
My folks just left.
Thank you.
When a man loves a woman.
The new Subaru Justy gets you anywhere you want to go, less expensively than any other four-wheel drive car.
He
Mr. Potts, you're home.
Of course. What brings you out on a night like this, James?
Get up to $1,500 cash back or 4.9 financing on a Subaru.
The problem with foreign oil is that the price and supply goes up and down. To get off this roller coaster, America can use its own coal and nuclear energy. America can count on coal and nuclear energy.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new extra strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new extra strength Malox Plus.
The president of Burma yielded to a bloody popular uprising and resigned today. Hardliner Sein Luen held power for only 17 days. No successor was named. The Central Committee of Burma's ruling party was called to an emergency meeting a week from today. The little princess left the hospital today. Child doesn't even have a name yet, but as Tom Fenton reports, Britain is bonkers about her.
She's only fifth in line and not likely to assume the throne, but the as-yet unnamed 4-day-old Princess of York is already a superstar. This was her first public appearance in a royal career that will be followed by the media every step of the way. It was a misstep by the Duchess of York, better known to her public as Fergie, that almost stole the headlines today. That was almost too much for a young American who actually handed her a bunch of flowers.
Oh, it's made my holiday.
The interest in royal watching, which has taken the place of stamp collecting, coin collecting, and butterfly collecting, has grown so much that it's like a huge snowball gaining momentum every day.
Why is Britain and much of the rest of the world going gaga over a minor member of the royal family?
Maybe it's because we've been waiting so long for this baby. As the Queen, even the Queen said, I'm sick of waiting for it.
Bookmakers are having a field day taking bets on the baby's first name. Hot favorites are Victoria and Louise. Long shots include Elizabeth, an old royal favorite, and at 10-1, Annabelle, the name of Princess Fergie's favorite night spot. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
Robbins is about to get a visit from an old friend. Pain. With age, her minor arthritis has made even simple moves painful ones. That's why her next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of minor arthritis pain or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
Red Lobster asks,
are you ready to feast?
Ready for crab legs, fried shrimp, and a lobster tail on one plate? That's the ultimate feast.
Are you ready to feast?
Ready for shrimp? 29 succulent shrimp done 4 delicious ways? Then try our great shrimp feast.
And if you're ready to feast, you're in a Red Lobster mood. You know how you love seafood.
Now, Tuesday and Wednesday only, try our shrimp and steak special, just $9.95.
Oh, look at me back in the 60s, working up a sweat. Oh, and that's how I used to pump iron.
Not today. Today we're exercising more and eating less red meat. But red meat is a great source of iron.
Only Kellogg's Bran Flakes has high fiber and 100% of the iron recommended today.
So now I pump a little iron outside and inside. You know, I haven't felt this good since I burned that bathing suit.
Kellogg's Bran Flakes.
New Orleans, the Crescent City, and the Big Easy. This was the Democrats' first choice for their convention, but the Republicans beat them to it. For this state, which has stood so squarely behind Ronald Reagan, the Reagan years have been anything but easy. CBS News chief political correspondent Bruce Morton has been out and around Louisiana, host for the Republican National Convention.
Drive down Route 90 toward Morgan City and abandoned rigs loom out of the mist and rain, quiet as wildcatters' broken dreams. Oil was king here, paid the freight, paid the taxes. Oil meant no property tax, second lowest state income tax in the country. Then oil went bust. For Louisiana, the free lunch had ended.
People don't like to hear it, so the first couple of times you tell them, they say, well, the tooth fairy still lives. But now everybody's well convinced that the tooth fairy is not going to come back.
Louisiana might seem an odd state for the Republicans to come to. Oil is as dead as the cotton plantations after the Civil War. Unemployment is the highest in the country. Agriculture, another major industry, is hurting.
And add to that, we've had our dose of bad politics over the years and some irresponsible policies.
Louisiana has been more or less populist ever since Huey Long built this capital and changed the state forever. And voters here have sometimes preferred entertainment to performance in their politicians. But running out of money has caused changes.
We're now forced as a people to diversify our economy, educate our children, clean up our air and water, and get ready for the 21st century.
New Orleans' main industry these days is tourism. It supports everything from musicians to the crews of the old stern wheelers. And this 11-year-old artist says he's making money so he can go to college. He seems to have drawn George Bush. The experts all say the state needs to diversify. New Orleans is working on a new, bigger convention center. The chemical industry is doing well. And one of the ways the state hopes to diversify is to make better use of this resource, the Mississippi River. Not just to carry tourists around, but as a major artery with the Port of New Orleans shipping American goods to the Caribbean and South America. Louisiana is still down, but thinks it can see how to climb up.
If you were to stay in Louisiana long enough, you would see a growing pride and self-belief. That's why I know we'll win.
Self-confidence, a feeling of we're on our way. If the Republicans catch that feeling, they'll have picked the right place. Bruce Morton, CBS News, The Big Easy.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer will be here from New Orleans tomorrow night with the early news, and I'll be back with a special pre-convention broadcast tomorrow evening at 10 Eastern Time, 9 Central. Until then, good night.
Heart specialists know the truth about aspirin. They know that the aspirin they recommend to help prevent second heart attack may irritate your stomach. And that's why heart specialists concerned about aspirin irritation recommend Ecotrin over Bayer. The truth is, Ecotrin is the only brand of aspirin that's safety coded to help protect your stomach from irritation. Consult your doctor about the aspirin heart specialists recommend most. That's Ecotrin, and that's the truth.
Mom sure know how to make life easier. Mine was always there for me. Like another mom I know. This mom, Phillips Milk of Magnesia, M-O-M. The laxative that helps your body work naturally for easy overnight relief. Would Mom be harsh? No. And Mom's even easier to take with this dosage cup. See? Mom knows just what you need. So when you run into trouble, remember, nobody treats you better than Mom.
The totally new Buick Regal. There's nothing like it on the American road.
Out on the horizon, the heart of a Buick, the start of a regal new day. The great American road was made for Regal. It's a regal reward, it's the way it should be in this regal American land. The great American road belongs to Buick.
This is CBS.
Good evening, I'm John Lindgren filling in for Chris Clark.
And I'm Brenda Blackman. Next on Eyewitness.